Welcome back to the UFO Funhouse. Today is video 3 on Bob Lazar, and to be honest, I think it's going to be the last one I do on Lazar for the foreseeable future. More or less everything I wanted to cover when it comes to Lazar uh, took place in the last two videos, but because the education, or lack thereof, or his story and backstory about his master's degrees from MIT and CalTech are so relevant to the story, and since he's still pretending to have these in 2021, I wanted just to spend a little bit of time going into why we all can know for sure, without a doubt, that he does not have them, that at most he graduated from Pierce Junior College, and that, he's been caught in, I guess not 4K, but he's been caught in at least 360p lying about this stuff. So, start off, Stanton Friedman actually does a pretty good summary of that here. Then I have a post that we'll run through really quickly with actually a new detail that I just learned today. But again, it should put to rest any possible belief that Lazar went to either one of these schools. And if he didn't go to those schools and didn't have the degrees he says he does, why should we believe him about anything else, if that makes sense? Everyone understands resume padding. I don't do it. Lots of people do. But him not being willing to admit deception on this front just completely shreds apart his credibility. So let's get into it. Here's a good old Stanton, rest in peace, Friedman, on Big Bad Bobby Lazar.
It's gotten much more invidious since then, though. We have people ostensibly with credentials who are frauds and who have glommed on to pop culture.
Indeed we do. Stephen Greer coming up next after Bob Lazar.
Two that come to mind. Robert Scott Lazar, supposedly a nuclear physicist with a master's in physics from MIT, a master in electronics from CalTech, who supposedly worked at Area 51 back engineering flying.
Pretty crazy credentials. I mean, what do you say? Physics and electronics from CalTech and MIT?
Saucers figured out how they work using element 115. It's a long, detailed story. You can buy the video someplace else, not from me.
Oh, you can subscribe to my channel and see the video here, maybe.
I did a lot of checking on Bob. I tried to meet with him twice. I was supposed to on one occasion, and he didn't go along. I checked at MIT. I checked at CalTech. Neither one ever heard of them. Well, but the government wiped his records clean is the response. I talked to the legal counsel at MIT. No way to do that. I talked with the guy who has the degrees, the commencement lists and all that sort of thing. No mention of Lazar.
Shocking.
None of the yearbooks show Lazar. You need it for a master's thesis. For a master's degree, you need a thesis. I talked to the guy who holds those. No Lazar item there.
So just to be clear, what he's getting at is like, yeah, and sure, in theory, it's not outrageous to think that the government could, if they were so inclined, bully some school into saying, hey, this person never went here. Strikes me as far-fetched, but it's plausible. But there's no way to make someone disappear from like civilian records and civilian memory. There are people that would have gone to school with Lazar. There would have been teachers that would remember him or recognize him. There would be papers floating around that he had written. There would be yearbooks with his picture and name in it. None of these things have ever existed, and there's never been anyone that's come forward at either school to say that they remember him or they saw him there.
He was asked publicly, when did you get your master's from MIT?
Yeah, and who the fuck doesn't
Well, let me
remember
see
when they
now.
went
I
to
think
school?
it was, probably 1982. I have friends who went to MIT.
I mean, even those of us like me with high school degrees, like, do you not remember that your class of whatever? Everybody remembers that.
I was accepted there myself, couldn't afford to go out of high school. And nobody who gets a master's degree in physics from MIT doesn't know what year he got it in.
Exactly.
He was asked to name some of his professors.
This is the best part.
Well, let's see now.
Lazar always does that. When he's asked a question about something that's bullshit, he goes, let's see now. Let me think. Oh, I don't know if I want to talk about this. I think it would be. He always tries to qualify it like that, and it's really It's really weird once you realize that he's lying.
He named somebody, Bill, somebody, I won't use his name.
Check this out. I will use his name because I actually have it on footage right here. Ba, 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 ba.
It's just. Could you reveal some of your professors at MIT?
So this is an interview with Bob in, I believe, 1991. I think it's actually Stanton asking this question. So we're connecting two different points in space-time without any magical gravity A and B waves. But here we go.
CalTech?
Yeah, if you want. I don't have a list of them here. Dr. Duxler, I think, was one of them, and
So Dr. Duxler is one that he throws out.
Hosefield was another.
And Hosefield.
Hosefield. Hossfield or something along those lines.
They remember you?
Oh yeah, Hosefield I know well.
Dude, he's so confident. Does he not realize that this is going to get followed up on? He must know that.
MIT or CalTech?
Hosefield was at MIT. Duxler was at CalTech.
Again, I can understand forgetting teachers you had, maybe not even remembering what year you had them, like sophomore, junior year, first, second, third, fourth year of college or university, but you wouldn't mix up between schools. That, to me, seems impossible. But here we are. Look at him. He knows. He's like, oh shit, I just fucked up big time.
Yeah, who's Barry?
Barry's a guy.
Okay, so yeah, then they get into some other stuff. Maybe I'll go through this interview on a different video later, but spending a lot of time on Lazar as it is.
Here, I checked on him. It was not a common name, fortunately.
So Bill is Duxler. It's Bill Duxler and something.
He was a physicist. The only trouble is, Bob said he would remember him from CalTech. This individual, Bill, never taught at CalTech. He only taught at Pierce Junior College.
Imagine
now, Bob himself
that.
had mentioned Pierce to me on the phone. He did go there. Now, that's in Southern California, and he was going there at the same time that he was supposedly attending MIT, 2,500 miles east of there. One heck of a commute. If you can go to MIT, you don't go to Pierce Junior College. But beyond that, I checked with his high school. He finished in the bottom third of his high school class. You can't get into MIT if you're outside. Usually the top 10, 15, 20% of your class. Bottom third, never.
Oh yeah, this is a good point as well. Like, Lazar finished bottom third of his high school class, and also you don't go from Pierce Junior College to MIT or CalTech. You don't transfer out of those schools.
His Element 115 scheme won't work. Sounds good, science fiction. So, I checked with Los Alamos. He is in the phone book there. Doesn't that prove that he was a scientist working there? No, it certainly doesn't prove he was a scientist, but if you look at the phone book page, up at the very top it says, this phone book for employees of the Los Alamos National Laboratory, the Department of Energy, Kirk Meyer Corporation, several other companies. Right after Bob's name, and he was only in one phone book issue. They issue them every several months. It says K/M. That's Kirk Meyer, a subcontractor. He worked out at the Maison facility. Don't need a clearance for that. People come in from all over the world, physicists, to do it.
So yeah, that's basically Stanton Friedman's take on Lazar. This post just recently came up, and there's something else in here that I thought was kind of interesting. So this is like the timeline. This guy does an excellent summary of Lazar's educational history. It's the same dude that I made the video about yesterday, the Addendum. When he's in court for his pandering charge, he cites that he has a degree from Pacifica University, and it turns out Pacifica University was a pay-to-play degree mill, like one of those places where you pay $300 or $500. They send you a degree for whatever quote-unquote life experience you have, and they provide a number and probably emails and whatever. I mean, back then there weren't emails, but like there's a number that if employers or other institutions call, they'll verify that you went there, and they'll verify that you graduated and or that you had a GPA of whatever. The only catch is there's no actual school. It's just I mean, it's not fraud. Maybe it is fraud. I don't know what you would call that. It's not a real school. There's no classes. You pay to buy certification. So he touts that he has this degree when he's in court reading off his credentials. But yeah, so supposedly, I think he mixes this up too. I think once he said he graduated from MIT in 1982, and once he said CalTech in 82. But supposedly, yeah. This is something I found really interesting. So Lazar has a book that he wrote called Dreamland, which is like his autobiography. I forget when it came out. Let's see. When did this book come out? Usually it says right. Oh, so recently, 2019. Interesting. I might have to read that. Um, Apparently, he spends a shit ton of time talking about high school, how he came to love science in high school, also a bunch of experiments he did there, blah 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 blah, some stuff he did with friends. Dedicates a ton of page space to it. Gets a master's from CalTech supposedly, and mentions this only in one single passing sentence. I originally worked at Fairchild as a technician repairing broken circuit boards, but eventually became a test engineer and later an engineer designing circuit and logic boards. I loved electronics and I was earning money and going to school at CalTech by this time. That's it. Gets a master's degree. Mentions it in one sentence, one time. How he was going to these schools while living in the wrong location, hard to say. Only mention of MIT in the book. Again, another master's degree, which is hypothetically a 4-year program. I'd taken what I thought was a step in the right direction, was grateful to the folks at Mason for sending me to MIT to further my education, but I felt as if I was one of those bags being carried along by the wind and unsure of how I could make any kind of course correction. Is he saying that he didn't? Like, what does that mean? One of the absolute weirdest things in the entire book and all his educational claims is a passage. He doesn't give any explanation as to how or when he could have gone to MIT, located in Massachusetts, and gotten a master's while he was working in New Mexico. Yeah, how the fuck do you do that? You can't. Even George Knapp. I kind of want to start doing what Danknet did and saying George Knapp, just to be an annoying little troll. He doesn't believe Bob went to these schools. This is a direct quote. There's a video. You can see this if you want. The information about his educational background was in the very first story that aired. I will confide to you, this was at a public speaking engagement. He said this. I've seen the video. I will confide to you this. I don't believe he went to those schools. I don't believe Bob Lazar could get a degree from CalTech or MIT for a very simple reason. At American universities, when you get an undergraduate degree, you have to take all kinds of core courses in subjects that you may not be interested in, like, math and English and whatnot. I think we all know about that. Literature. I can't possibly imagine Bob Lazar sitting through a class in American Lit or reading poetry or something like that. He'd never stand for it. There's no way in hell that he sat through that stuff to get that degree. Here's how I rationalize it. Bob would not be the first person to lie about his educational credentials to get a good job. So again, Knapp is basically using like the resume padding theory, which personally I also could see. I've mentioned this before. I'll mention it again. I think it would do Bob a big favor. He'd be doing himself a big favor, that is, to come forward and say, look, yeah, I lied about my education. I was resume padding. I really needed a better job or a better salary. So I made up 2 degrees from MIT and CalTech for that purpose. I regret doing that now. It was a mistake to have done it. So I'm coming clean about that, but I assure you, everything else I've talked about is true and accurate. If he did that, the Lazar stands would be over the moon about it. He probably earned some people back to his camp, but it's been 32 years. Hasn't given up the ghost. I don't think he's going to do it. So, one last time, let's watch the 26-second video that's supposedly a flying saucer. I mean, it could be anything. Call it a day. Because you know what, my friends? Rock and roll will never die. you and I can live forever. Until the next one, it's been real.